Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Deltarune theory video. Woo! I thought I was out of ideas. Apparently I'm not out of ideas. I do have another bigger video that I keep teasing, but I wanted to do this one first because the idea struck me, and you gotta strike while the iron's hot sometimes. You know what they say. So, you read the title, you understand what this video is about. I'm going to be talking about the idea of Megalovania in Deltarune, which was, if you watched my theories ranking video, one of the theories in there. And I hadn't really even thought about it before because obviously Megalovania is going to be in Deltarune at some point. I feel like it's almost a guarantee, unless Toby is going to specifically not use it to differentiate Deltarune from Undertale. But, I mean... You could make the same argument like, well, maybe he wouldn't use it in Undertale because he wants to differentiate Undertale from Homestuck. Didn't happen. Speaking of Homestuck, though, I am going to be using Homestuck knowledge in this video because Megalovania is in Homestuck. So, if you don't want spoilers for Homestuck, I guess, don't watch. And then obviously there's going to be spoilers for Undertale, but... I think if you've existed on the internet at this point, you already know everything I'm about to talk about. So, what can I say? Let's begin. So, this is kind of a big question. Who usually gets Megalovania? Because it's happened four-ish times now. It was in the original Earthbound Halloween hack. That's where it originates from. It was used in another Earthbound hack called Cognitive Dissonance, which most people, I don't think, probably know about. I don't even know that much about it. So, it was in Homestuck, and then it was in Undertale, and I mean, now it's in Smash Bros., but it's with Sans, so it's still kind of Undertale. But the question of whose theme is Megalovania is kind of a loaded one, so we'll get into that in the next slide. But for now, let's just summarize. In Halloween Hack and Cognitive Dissonance, it's more or less just used for big final bosses, right? It is basically the final boss theme in Halloween Hack, and it's used for who I think is the final boss in Cognitive Dissonance. I could be wrong. Obviously, I've never played it. To be fair, I have played some of Halloween Hack for a video once, but I never, really played it, so... Whatever. That's a tangent. But Homestuck's different, right? It can sort of feel like it's playing while we're fighting the final boss when Bec Noir, who, if you don't know Homestuck, is essentially the main villain of the first 4 acts of Homestuck. Well, really first 5. It can feel like we're fighting the final boss, but we're really not. In fact, after this scene, he doesn't show up that much before the end of Act 5, and then he's basically done for the rest of the series. So, instead of it belonging to Bec Noir, I feel like a lot of people believe it belongs to one of the main characters from Homestuck instead. There's a lot of people who say Vriska should have it, and even if you haven't read Homestuck or watched my video on it, you probably know who Vriska is, because Vriska's doing stuff in the same cutscene that's playing while this song is playing. But another character is also doing stuff while Megalovania is playing. In fact, doing more stuff while the main hook of Megalovania is playing, and that is Aradia, or Aradia. I say Aradia. Tomato, tomato, I guess. Which is funny because she's got the red blood. Anyway, that sounds weird if you don't know Homestuck. The reason why I specify Aradia is because, and this is how I got into Homestuck in the first place, in the Pester Quest OST, Aradia's theme, which is playing in the background of the video right now, by the way, is a chilled down rendition of Megalovania. So she's literally got it as her theme in this game, which it's not like total confirmation that Megalovania is basically her theme and her theme alone. But it does lend credence to the idea that Megalovania is more of her theme than anybody else's in the game. Because she does have other themes they could have used. It's not like Megalovania... She does barely do anything in the story, but it's not like she doesn't have other themes they could have pulled for her character theme in this game. So it feels very intentional that would be using Megalovania. That said, in Undertale, does Megalovania belong to Sans? I remember there was a lot of theory talk back in the day that actually Megalovania is your theme, or like Kara's theme, or however you want to look at it, instead of Sans' theme. And Sans' theme is actually a song that might play when you fight Sans, right? But, and this is, again, it's a little cloudy, it's not perfect. When Sans was brought to Smash Ultimate with the Mii Fighter costume, he came along with Megalovania, which kind of feels like, not confirmation, obviously, because it's the most relevant song from the game. Of course they would want Megalovania over song that might play when you fight Sans. But they are tied together now in that way. So maybe we can look at these two characters that aren't final bosses and actually try to figure out who might get Megalovania and Deltarune based on that as a foundation. Because, I mean, if it's just going to belong to the final boss, it's just, who do you think the final boss is? Which isn't quite as fun of a theory. So let's analyze Aradia and Sans and what they have in common and who in Deltarune might have the most in common with them. So, first, why is the song called Megalovania at all? So this is taken from a Wikipedia article, so take this with a grain of salt. But apparently, the name is derived from megalomania, which is an obsession with the exercise of power, especially in the domination of others, and Transylvania, which was just used because it's a spooky Halloween hack, which I think is kind of funny. And I looked into the etymology of Transylvania in case there was anything interesting with the Vania part about it. No, there really isn't. It just means like forest land. So that's probably not relevant. We got to focus on the characters instead. Aradia is an undead alien. She literally gets killed and becomes a ghost. From another planet, obviously than Earth, if she's an alien. Kind of redundant. With the power to control time, eventually. She also becomes a robot for a bit. Is that relevant? Probably not. But she does have the power to shoot a big laser just like Sans does, so maybe, I don't know. When Megalovania is playing for her, she is stopping a big threat, like I was saying, not the main villain, but the main villain of that arc, from destroying everything. Bec Noir is a force that essentially just wants to annihilate the universe. It's like, that's his goal. He's not trying to dominate the world, for example. He just wants to destroy everything. So you could say there's an element of megalomania there, for sure. The exercise of power and the domination of others is pretty in line with Bec Noir's to the max. In a similar way to Kara with Sans. So Sans is a skeleton monster. So once again, we're seeing like undead or coming back to life. From the underground that just randomly appears one day and has the power to like teleport somehow. Maybe he can control space-time. So we have a thread of being able to control time potentially. Megalovania plays when he is fighting a big threat that's going to wipe out everything, which obviously is Kara or the player or whatever. But not the main villain, because remember, the main villain of Undertale is still Azrael / Flowey. And Flowey is a major character in the kill everyone route. So, he could have stopped Flowey, but he doesn't. Instead, he is here to fight us, right? So, both Sans and Aradia are unlikely heroes. I think if in the universes they come from, you could pick one person from the universe to defend everybody before you see what they can do, you would never pick them. They're more or less background characters who don't get to do much of importance until this moment where suddenly they are overwhelmingly important. Both can seemingly control some aspect of reality. For Aradia, it is time. She also kind of is the Lord of Death in some ways. She's kind of like the Grim Reaper, but it's mostly in the sense of time. Whereas Sans can just like warp around somehow, and we're not really sure how that is exactly. But it has a similar sort of aroma to it, you know? Both are kind of nihilistic. Aradia in Homestuck says that she kind of just wants to see what'll happen when everything ends. That's what she wants, is the satisfaction of seeing what happens when everything is dead. Because she's the Grim Reaper. But it sort of aligns with Sans' idea that he can't really do anything to change their fates. So he's kind of just waiting to see what will happen. Both of them have this mentality of even if they could give it their all, there's really no point, right? Both have their crowning moments, which basically they just show their true potential, fighting someone who never should have been a world-ending threat. Bec Noir / Jack Noir is just an NPC from the game, who they accidentally gave godly power. He wasn't intended to be the final boss of the story. And in a similar way, the player is never intended to be the final boss for the underground, right? You're intended to either play a neutral route or a pacifist route. In most timelines, that's what happens. And finally, both are involved in the battle against their respective final bosses, but they don't give it their all. Like, in Homestuck, Aradia time freezes Bec and holds him in place so that everybody can escape. In the final battle with Lord English, she kind of just puts him in a chokehold, and that's it. Whereas Sans uses time-warping powers and his knowledge of game mechanics to stop the player, but he kind of just stands there and gets vined up by Flowey without really trying, right? So who in Deltarune sounds the most like this description of a character? Well, you might have picked up on it when I said nihilistic earlier, but it's Sham. I know a lot of people like to say Susie Lovania or whatever. Like, Susie will get Megalovania when Susie comes to fight us. And I think there is some potential there. Like, if we look at this list, Susie is an unlikely hero. In the first chapter, she's like, I'm not a hero, I'm, the bully or whatever. And she's also kind of nihilistic in the way that she believes that, she can't do anything right or whatever. So it is possible, but I think Sham fits the bill a little stronger just because Sham is so much less important compared to Susie. In a similar way to before you end up fighting Sans or Aradia, they're also fairly unimportant in the overall story. Sham's a nihilistic stuffed animal that was sewn back together. Sham's missing an eye, missing a tail. There's like a patch on their head as if like they're missing stuffing out of their head, like a little baddie or whatever. Their mouth is sewn together. Which kind of gives like a Frankenstein vibe almost, which works with this whole undead theme that we talked about with Aradia and Sans. They seem to believe the world is soon to end, so they don't see a point in really trying to change anything, which that does sound like Sans, and that does sound like Aradia. They were somehow able to defeat Jevil in the past, and yet now spend their days as a humble shopkeeper. So we know Sham has some sort of grand power that we've never seen, but we've only been told about, because we could barely beat Jevil. So if Sham can beat Jevil, there's something to that. And finally, Sham is the one that is currently collecting the shadow crystals from us, right? These extremely powerful artifacts, the thing that gave Jevil his power in the first place. And if Sham is going to collect them for us to keep them safe, perhaps it's actually Sham's way of keeping the world safe from us. Doing, the bare minimum to try to stop us from going down the wrong path. And if we end up going down the wrong path, then maybe Sham will actually try to stop us in a confrontation, rather than in this sort of trickstery manner. So, yeah, that's basically the theory, is that Sham is going to be a secret boss at some point, and Sham will be the one to have Megalovania. There is one more piece of evidence I want to bring up really fast, and I don't have a slide for it, so give me a second. So these are the Deltarune line stickers. You see them fairly often because I use them in my videos if you watch those. And they were made when Chapter 2, I don't think, had come out yet. Does it actually have a date on it somewhere? No. Anyway, they're basically just little images you can buy to use on the social media platform Line, which isn't very popular in North America, I don't think, but in other places. I used to go on there to get funny little badges, I think, when I was like 15. That was when it was just starting. But, you know, most of these badges belong to main characters. Lots of Susie, lots of Ralsei, lots of Noelle, some Lancers, Javel, Rules Card, Birdly, one for Caddy, one for Jockington, two for Toriel, Asgore, Undine, Alphys, and even one for Toby. And then there's just one for Sham. Sham kind of sticks out like a sore thumb among these specific picks, don't you think? Like, it is fate. If you wanted to give that sticker to someone, you could have given it to King, you could have given it to Ralsei, you could have given it to a lot of people. So it's interesting that Sham specifically was picked to get a sticker in this first line that's very restrictive. Really, it's only characters that have showed up multiple times in the game and are relevant to the overall story in some way. There's even like hints of the Snowgrave route in here, so it seems relevant that Sham gets a sticker all to themselves. And Sham's even getting a plushie right now. And also, I found this after I ended recording for this video. In the Undertale, in the Fan Gamer Undertale Deltarune cross-stitching book, there's a description of a weapon once wielded by Sham in combat, which, let's be clear, this is not the most viable source for information, but reading this really does sound like everything I just said to you, right? Let's go over it. Seam Ripper, or Sham Ripper, either way. A tool designed to allow for the easy removal of stitches. Its small curved blade cuts through the thread, while its blunt or ball-tipped point protects your fabric. Essential for ripping out a misaligned stitch if you're too far along to simply pull the threads back out. So in other words, essential for starting over, essentially, if you can no longer control the situation, if we were to read this thematically. So, does it mean anything? I don't know. That's up for you to decide. I can only present you the evidence. Thanks for watching this video. If you leave a comment, I'll be sure to read it. I'm always interested in your takes on these things, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!